Oh, you need glasses?
Yeah, are you using them?
What?
Will you be using yours?
No.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to bring mine, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you here, and good morning to you out there far away as well. Most of us just see each other once a week. That is, the people here in the room. But many things, not just distance, may seem from time to time to divide us. But this morning, we forget all that, and we are as one. So let that be the spirit of our time together as we speak and listen and sing and laugh, and if we can, pray. Let the distance, inner and outer, recede from this moment until we find ourselves once again where we belong, at home. We're ready. So let's begin now by greeting somebody sitting near you. And those of you out there in Cyberland, call out to somebody in another room. Smile at them, yes. Make a phone call. With nothing more in your mind but to spread a little tiny bit of joy. If you're on a bus, go on, smile at a stranger. Be careful, but smile at a stranger. It may just be that something unexpected and wonderful could happen. In that hope, we light our chalice flame. Let's sing something we like. Come, strong God, and walk beside us. Number 22 in the Purple Book. I'm going to read you a poem by one of my favorite poets. You probably know this poem. I know it well. It keeps coming back to me. It was written about 100 years ago at the end of World War I. It's got some scary elements to it, and that kept me awake. I lie not about this an extra hour last night trying to decide whether to read it. In the end, I decided to do it because it's something that we need to reckon with in our time. And it's called The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremonies of innocence are drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are these words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with a lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know the 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. Somber, very familiar to what's happening now in the world, but I'm comforted by the fact that that was 100 years ago. We have dealt with that and undealt with it and dealt with it again and undealt with it again. And it may be we need to take courage from such words. And that's why in the end I decided to read it. Now come cheer us up, Lowell.
I'll try. I have come to this garden alone, while the dew still on them roses, and the words I hear coming to mine ear, the ancient one discloses. He walks with me, talks with me, he tells me how I am his own, and the joys we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks and the birds hush their tune, so sweet is the voice he is giving. That melody he gives to me others ever know. I'd stay in that garden with him, though the night's slowly falling. But he bids me go through the voice of woe. To me that voice is calling. He walks with me, he talks with me, he tells me how I am his own, and the joys we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
That's a great old Christian tune. So don't let anybody tell you that we're heathen. Although I quite like being heathen. It just means from the country. That's all it means. Now let's let all the noise die down. All the noise out there in the street, and not less the noise within us. And let us feel comfortable in this dear place, built with dreams and effort and material wealth. Let us feel embraced in its welcome, reaching out from all those years to this present moment, and let us feel its peace. It may reach us through the web of defense and denial. It may sing to us over the persistent chorus of anxieties, through the filters of cynicism, the cotton wool of self-protection. It may sing to us in songs we have not heard for oh so long, the songs that were heard at our birth. It may rise up through the welter of mere events to remind us of the story of our sacred journey through time. It may give us laughter or the sweet tears of reconciliation. As our bell sounds now, let it conduct us to the place where the heart feels at home. Let its dying tone be the fading of our concerns with all those things that are fleeting. Now it is only necessary to listen with heart as well as ears, as we go together into the good silence. One nameless one God of history, welcome guest of the present, Spirit of what will ever be, hold us us in our confusion, our doubt, and our despair, until we have learned to seek you in every dark corner of the world. Give us your presence not just in prayer, but in all the lost hours of our time. Let this be our prayer this morning. So be it. Inshallah. Shalom. Amen. Nobody knows what to call God, so it's almost pointless to try. But we're going to sing a little song now. It says, "Bring Many Names," number 19 in the Purple Book. 14. You can sing 19 if you want, but it probably won't. Number 14, "Bring Many Names." The first two verses are with the music. Many names, beautiful and good, celebrating parable and story, holiness and glory, living, loving God. Hail and Hosanna, bring many names. Strong Mother God, working night and day, planning all the wonders of creation, setting each equation, genius at play. Hail and Hosanna, strong Mother God, warm Father God, hugging every child, feeling all the strains of human living, caring and forgiving, till we're reconciled. Hail and Hosanna, Father God, all aching heart, pray with endless care, only piercing evils were disguises. Despair. Hail and Hosanna, Holy King God, young growing God, eager on the move, saying no to falsehood and unkindness, crying out for justice, giving all you have. Hail and Hosanna, ungrowing God, a living God, never fully known, beyond our seeing, closer yet than breathing, everlasting home. Hail and Hosanna, great God. Hey, Jim, how much money have you got in the bank?
Don't tell me, Jim.
How much do you earn a year? Yeah. Shocking, that is. And a Unitarian minister in America once said, if you ask people to choose between telling what their finances were like or taking off their clothes, and the whole room would look like a nudist colony. There's just something about it you don't do. How much money have you got? Yes. You're not going to tell me, but I'm not surprised. The famous Unitarian preacher sorted all that out for us. He revealed that what that was about a score sheet. It's kind of a score sheet you keep in this capitalist world that we inhabit. How much money you got in the bank, how much you earn, that says how well you're doing. And the game that we're all signed on to, whether we like it or not. But it wasn't apparently always so, at least for the so-called working class. Anybody who wants to identify with the working class, let me see your hand now. There we go, so working class people. It wasn't so long ago that people didn't have a choice of careers anyway, outside of just a few privileged people. Most young people grew up knowing that at 16, if they were men, they'd put down their school books and pick up a lunch pail and go to work in the factory. And women did the same, or they went into service or something similar. They went to the factory, the mine, or the mill, and life was more or less organized around the local industry. And with rare exceptions, became the daily focus of everyone's existence. And so everybody knew more or less how everybody else was doing. You didn't have many hills and valleys in the wealth department. Well, that has changed to some extent. Some people would say a large extent. But the question of what you do for a living is still a live one. In fact, it goes back thousands of years. One of the elements of the Buddha's Eightfold Path was called right livelihood. In other words, the way you earn a living had to do with a spiritual discipline. The whole of life was seen as a path toward enlightenment. Even an apparently mundane thing like earning a living took on theological importance. Underlying the advice of the Buddha was a simple principle. Work and live in such a way as to be compassionate and harmless to other life forms. And he included all kinds of life forms in that. Leave the world a better, at least not a worse, place than when you turned up in the beginning. Make a light footprint in the sand. All of this is about a great project that all of life is involved in, moving toward ultimate liberation from the rounds of birth and death. Buddha knew very well that people tend to be selfish and ruthless, that they are ruled by lower desires and dominated by egotism, and that these traits were the things that held them captive, held them into a condition of suffering. But also that all life is tending, however slowly, towards some goal that's variously been called nirvana and other things. A movement in that direction was both reflected in and aided by a life of being harmless. The idealism of that vision is still around in some Asian countries where young people don't go in the military when they're of a certain age. They become monks for a year and presumably learn something about being quiet inwardly and about compassion. But we're part of a different project now. A casual look around will tell you volumes about what we've signed on to. Go for it. Scream the adverts. Greed is good, really. It's just a form of self-awareness. Competition, that's godlike in its virtues. Having things, what you have, is the only ultimately important thing. And words like ambitious, which used to be a negative thing you said about somebody. Mark Antony's speech, he says, some say that Caesar was ambitious, but who has filled the coffers of the poor? Ambitious now is a good thing. Look at the newspaper ads for jobs. We want someone who's ambitious. Back in the 1970s, one of my heroes, E.F. Schumacher, wrote a book. He wrote a book called Small is Beautiful. Some of you will know it. He also published a book called Good Work. And Schumacher was an unlikely candidate for all this. He was no kind of tree hugger and sandal wearing guy at all. In fact, he was head of the British Coal Board for a while. But he developed for himself the theme of right livelihood as set out by the Buddha and attempted to put it into the context of present day civilization. And he took from the Buddha 3 points. I'm going to give them to you. The first and most important thing to start out is to use your gifts to the full. In other words, if you've got any gifts lying around you're not using, that's a waste. That's wrong. Implicit in this is the idea that everybody in the world is born with certain abilities. Others have called this genius or the daemon. This reflects the idea of karma, cause and effect, in which there's a reason for the presence of the gifts and a need to use them well. Anybody can qualify. If you're not a brain surgeon, okay, you might be a fantastic babysitter. No gift is too humble and no gift is too magnificent, and all are to be employed with skill and purpose. And that is the first step into being a whole person. The second element of Schumacher's advice is this: work cooperatively with other people. And this means finding in the physical necessity of work a vital byproduct, which is often overlooked when you're choosing a career. The issue now appears to be whether working from home is as good as going back into the office. People are howling about that. One gets as much from being with others in the rough and tumble of employment as the paycheck itself delivers. Work provides the medium for rich, complex encounters with other people. When done with the awareness that one applies to a spiritual discipline, the workplace becomes a laboratory of compassion, a workshop of finding love. When people retire after years of hard work in a career, they find themselves plunged into an unanticipated crisis. It's true, they don't have to get awake in the morning by the alarm clock. They don't have to struggle through traffic for hours to get to their jobs. They practically live for weekends then. But it's also the case that something vital has gone out of their lives in the form of other people. Loved people, hated people, dangerous people, safe people, people under your thumb, people at your throat, people in the cafeteria and line at the time clock, just people. Simply being around people. And to the extent that their career was successful, it will have produced not just a pension, but an inevitable and invisible wealth of contacts and memories upon which to draw. Well, that's two. The third injunction of Schumacher is probably the thorniest issue of all. It's this. And this is why I'm talking about it this morning. Earn enough for a good life, neither too much nor too little. We human beings are at a major turning point in our history because the rules have started to change all around us. We come from a culturally embedded idea that Scarcity is what the problem is out there. There's just not enough stuff, and that we have to grab our share. We have to accumulate. When Bernard Malthus published his depressing economic theories in the 19th century, he confirmed that idea: there's never enough for everybody. There's never going to be enough for everybody. The population is going to increase to a level at which a majority of people are living marginal lives of misery. This is all Malthusian theory. And then apparently Jesus seemed to agree. He said, the poor are always with you. But no, screamed Karl Marx, it's just a matter of new organization. You just have to rearrange things. It's the law of nature, said Charles Darwin, that man with his Unitarian roots. Only the strong survive. Now, whatever the point of view, all of them point to a tendency in humanity to accumulate wealth at the expense of others. Maybe that works okay where there really isn't enough stuff going on. But to keep on accumulating, once you've got one super yacht, do you really need another one? Isn't the fact of all that money itself displacing and changing the lives of people around you, whether you know it or not? I think the Buddha and I think Jesus too were saying, of course there's enough to go around if everybody knows when to let off in their dash for personal wealth and becomes content with having enough. Of course there is. Just enough to be happy, to pursue one's own high purposes, to leave a light footprint on the earth. And as Gandhi put it, enough for one's need, but not for one's greed. You don't feed greed. Greed has a boundless appetite. E.F. Schumacher called it the steady state economy as opposed to the one that keeps expanding. And all you hear from economists on telly is growth, expanding economies, more. We have to have more. At the same time, we're saying, wait a minute, we might really run out of stuff. We might run out of water. We might run out of, goodness gracious, we might run out of cool air and all cook. That one that begets desperate poverty, rape of the environment, and its finest flower of all. We're seeing it's war. If the falcon cannot hear the falconer, like Yeats says, we lose. But there are voices that we have to listen to. Fritz Schumacher is one. The Buddha is one. And can't we forget these words, beautiful words from the New Testament. Behold the lilies of the field, they spin not, neither do they weave. Yet Solomon in his glory was not clad as one of these. Their injunctions to right livelihood reach right beyond patterns of predicted employment in the public sphere to something much, much more basic. Something as basic as food and shelter are for the body, the fulfillment of the soul in its task of becoming. And so we should ask ourselves and our children, what is it that we really need? What is it that we really need? When the computer games begin to pall and we need Prozac or a bottle of Chardonnay to get by, when the poor of the third world finally gain advantage and begin their own plunder of the earth and other peoples, when all the hype in the world can't keep the footsie expanding, what is it that we would like to experience, to be? It can't be easy to overcome instincts of self-preservation. We've all got those. We are, after all, mammals. But when we were granted the use of reason, that's exactly what we were signing up to. And it's as much a part of our equipment as our mouths and stomachs. What started me on this was a simple thing. I was talking to a friend, and it occurred to me, and I asked him this question. I said, is there a difference between saying how much I make and how much I earn? Is there a difference? Earning means deserving. Earning means that you did something for it, which was in itself beneficial, that moved outside your own narrow concerns, but making it like you got it from Bitcoin or something. Who did that benefit? And no matter how they spiel the economists about how the rising tide lifts all boats, the fact is that if you do not earn something, it cannot benefit you. So I wish for you, I wish for all of us, the fruition of your gifts. And if you're retired and think you're beyond all that, ask yourself, the money you get every month, how's that being made? Is that money being earned, or is it coming at the expense of other people? And is there something you can do about it? Oh yes, there certainly will be. But I wish you a life shared in cooperative work with others, a life in which all your gifts get used, and this most of all, enough and not too much. Good work. Amen. Lovely, thank you. Thank you, Will. Is this church doing good work or not? That's something we have to take up soon. But in the meantime, let's collect some money for its work. If you don't have any money, don't worry. Don't put it in. If you have lots of money, go ahead, cut us a check. What was that?
Called Belmont. I played earlier today.
I like that. It's almost a perfect thing for the money collection. Never mind. I'll find out afterwards. About 25 to 30 people are here, they're not here. They're out in cyber world. Some of them now can be coaxed out of their COVID shells and back into work. It's just too easy to roll over on a Sunday morning and put on YouTube. But there we are. So let's get everybody back in here if we can. I woke up sad this morning about Ukraine and other things. I let it get to me. And then Mabel came in, and I felt instantly better. You have that gift. You have that gift, and so very welcome back to you, Mabel. I'm so happy. Yeah, and all the rest of you new guys who've just come here, you might find that you enjoy it here, and you'd be welcome to struggle down here from Walthamstow every Sunday if you want to. I can't think of anything else I need to say right now. But we can sing. We can sing number 195 in the Purple Book. We sing a love that sets all people free. As we turn now to go to resume those tasks we've set ourselves, let us carry with us something of the peace we may have found here this morning. Let us resolve to be mindful of that never-failing presence we call the Spirit, wherever our footsteps take us. And for this, let us look after one another, because we know we can. Until we meet again.